The Tibetan plateau is filled with ancient buildings, but have you ever stopped to ask, what kind of homes people built here 1,000 years ago? Not palaces, not temples, but something far more practical. One type of building tells us almost everything about how ancient Tibetans survived. It's called the Tibetan watchtower. To understand these towers, we first need to look at the land they came from. This plateau is one of the highest places on Earth. Mount Everest rises right here. Air is thin. Winter bite cold. Strong winds never stop. Roads are narrow, steep, and made of rock. For thousands of years, living here wasn't about comfort. It was about survival. Ancient tribes lived on this land. They farmed what they could. They herded sheep and yaks. But resources were scarce. Good land was rare. Water was limited. Tribes fought over grasslands. They fought over fields. And sometimes enemies came from outside the plateau, drawn by the little that existed here. Safety was never guaranteed. Early homes were simple: mud, wood, easy to build, but easy to destroy. When enemies came, these houses offered no protection. Families weren't safe. Food wasn't safe. So people changed the way they built. From these dangers, a new structure was born. Tall, strong, built from stone and earth. That structure was the Tibetan watchtower, and to understand why it mattered, we need to step back in time. Let's step back more than 1,000 years. The Tibetan plateau was not a single kingdom. It was home to many tribes, small groups scattered across valleys and mountains. Each tribe lived close to the land. They farmed when the soil allowed it. They raised sheep, yaks, and horses wherever grass could grow. Life here was never easy, but for a long time it was manageable. Then pressure began to build. Resources were limited. Good grasslands were rare. Fertile soil was even rarer. Water could decide who survived and who didn't. As populations grew, competition turned into conflict. What started at tension slowly became fighting. Tribes fought over grazing land for their animals. They fought over fields where grain could grow. And the danger didn't only come from nearby rivals. Groups from outside the plateau also appeared, drawn by resources or by the chance to take what others had built. On this land, peace was fragile, safety was temporary. At that time, homes were simple: mud walls, wooden frames. They were quick to build, but they offered little protection. When attackers came, these houses failed. Walls were broken, food was taken, families were exposed. People realized something had to change. Survival was no longer just about living on the land. It was about defending it. And that realization changed the way they built. And that change took physical form. Across the plateau, a new kind of structure began to rise. Not wide, not comfortable, but tall. Built from the stone and earth, these towers stood above ordinary houses. They were called watchtowers, and they changed everything. The earliest watchtowers appeared more than 1,000 years ago. At first, they were small, simple in design, built with whatever materials people could find nearby. But even these early towers served one clear purpose: to see danger before it arrived. Height mattered. From the top of a tower, guards could spot enemies long before they reached the valleys. On open plateau land, this could mean seeing danger from kilometers away. Time meant survival. The materials were not imported. They didn't come from distant places. Stone was everywhere. Clay lay just beneath the grass. People mixed clay with water to make mortar. It worked like glue, bending heavy stones into solid walls. These towers were built from the land itself. Builders stacked the stones one by one. They packed clay tightly between them. The walls grew thick. sometimes up to 2 meters at their base. These were not walls to meant beautiful. They were walls meant to survive attacks. For the first time, villages had a structure that could truly protect them. At first glance, a watchtower looks simple, just stone stacked on stone. But the strength of these towers didn't come from height alone. It came from how they were shaped. Every part of the structure was designed with purpose. Look closely at the walls. They are thick at the bottom and thinner toward the top. This tapering design lowered the center of gravity. It made the tower heavier at the base and more stable overall. On a plateau, where earthquakes and strong winds are common, this shape mattered. Strong winds hit the upper walls first. By narrowing toward the top, the tower reduced the wind pressure. At the same time, the inward-leaning walls helped spread stress downward. Instead of collapsing, the force traveled into the ground. This was not accidental, it was engineering logic. The walls were not only thick, sometimes over 2 meters at their base. That thickness served many purposes. It resisted attacks, it supported the tower's weight, and it acted as insulation. In winter, the stone and earth trapped heat inside. In summer, they kept the interior cool. Defense and comfort built into the same structure. These builders didn't have textbooks, no blueprints, no calculations written on paper, but they learned from failure. Towers that collapsed were rebuilt. Designs that survived were repeated. Over generations, trial and error turned into tradition. This was engineering knowledge passed down by memory and hands. The watchtower wasn't strong because it was complicated. It was strong because every design choice solved a real problem. This was architecture shaped by survival. The smartest defenses often start with their entrance. In most watchtowers, the door was not on the ground. It was placed higher, usually on the second floor. To get inside, people used a single wooden ladder. At night, or when danger appeared, that ladder disappeared. It was pulled up. Enemies were left below, staring at a blank wall. This ladder wasn't complex. It was often just a single log with steps carved into it. Simple to make, easy to replace, but without it, the tower became unreachable. No ladder, no entrance. Watchtower windows were small, and they were not square. They were trapezoidal, wide at the bottom, narrow at the top. From the inside, the opening was wide. From the outside, it was tight. This meant villagers could see and shoot out easily, while attackers struggled to aim in. During peace, these windows let in light and air. During conflict, they became shooting holes. Arrows could be fired downward at a steep angle. Attackers below had almost no chance to shoot back. It was geometry turned into defense. None of these features worked alone. A high entrance, movable ladders, trapezoidal windows. Each one slowed attackers. They stopped them. Defense wasn't about one big wall, it was about layers. The watchtower didn't rely on strength alone. It relied on smart design, simple materials, clear logic. These were not castles built by kings. They were defenses built by villagers, and they worked. Over time, watchtowers began to mean more than safety. They became signals. On the plateau, you could see a tower from far away. Long before reaching a village, you already knew what kind of place it was. The tall tower sent a clear message. It said, this village is organized, this village is prepared, and most importantly, this village is not easy to attack. Power, in this sense, was visible. In ancient Tibetan society, a tribe's status was often tied to its towers. Taller towers meant more resources, more labor, better builders. A village with many towers was seen as wealthy and strong. Smaller groups noticed this. They often chose to follow stronger tribes rather than challenge them. This is how architecture shapes behavior. A strong defense doesn't just stop attacks, it discourages them. When danger looks costly, people think twice. The tower worked before any arrow was fired. Tribe leaders built the largest towers. Their towers were taller, thicker, and more complex. These were not only defensive structures, they were statements. We have power, we have control, we will endure. In this way, watchtowers shaped more than villages. They shaped relationships between tribes, between leaders and followers. Stone and earth became tools of social order. As time passed, the world around the watchtowers changed. Wars between tribes became less common. Central authority took control of the region. The towers no longer needed to stand ready for attack. Their role slowly shifted. Families stayed. The first floor still held animals and food. The middle floor remained living space. The top floor stayed a place of prayer, rooted in Buddhist belief. What was once a fortress became a home. The towers didn't disappear, they adapted. This story is not unique to Tibet. Across the world, people have built similar structures for the same reasons, not to show power, but to survive. Wherever life was fragile, architecture became a tool of protection. From stone towers in Europe to desert fortresses in the Middle East, to mountain villages across Asia, different cultures, the same logic. Build higher, build thicker, build smarter. The Tibetan watchtower is not remarkable because it is ancient. It is remarkable because it reflects something universal. When people face danger, they don't always fight harder. Sometimes they build smarter. And that may be one of humanity's oldest skills.